It's too windy out here. We got to get out of this rain before it gets crazy. That worries you sometimes, but that's part of living in Florida. This is the Canon M50. Currently, the best camera available for making videos on YouTube. Don't believe me? Stick around to the end. I guarantee I'll change your mind. Hey there, thanks for checking out this video. Once again, you've shown an astute ability for recognizing good content when you see it. Why don't you continue with that trend and go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below so you don't miss any of my videos in the future. Okay, so here it is, the Canon M50. This was released in February of 2018, like a year and a half ago at this point. So you're saying, man, why are you saying this is the best thing out for YouTube right now? Well, because I think it actually is. This camera features a 24.1 megapixel CMOS APS-C sensor, so it's got a 1.6 times crop. More importantly than any of that, it has Canon's dual pixel autofocus built in. It shoots in 1080p at 24, 30, 60 frames a second, and in 4K at 24 frames per second. It also shoots in 720p at 120 frames a second. One of the caveats of the 4K is it increases the crop, so it's going to make it look more zoomed in, and it loses that dual pixel autofocus. So let's go ahead and address the big elephant in the room that everybody's just itching to tell me in the comments why this camera sucks, right? Well, yes, the 4K has an unreasonable crop in today's day and age. It zooms you in like this. Terrible. Doesn't have dual pixel good autofocus. It switches to a contrast-based autofocus. Yes, that sucks. It's dumb. But I promise you a lot of the other things about this camera make it better than anything else out on the market. If 4K video and dual pixel autofocus is so important to you, either you fit into one of two categories. Either A, you're probably not watching this video because you're far too advanced for a camera like the M50, you're not a beginner YouTuber. Or B, you've bought into all the hype and you've watched all these other videos telling you how everything has to be in 4K and has to be full frame, and you really don't know what you need, but you think you need that, so you just look at the spec sheet on this and you think, this isn't the right camera for me because the 4K sucks. If you fall into that category B, keep watching because I promise you, this is a good camera. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and switch to this camera for the rest of the video. I only have one of them. I'm shooting this right now on my DJI Osmo Pocket, which is also a very good camera, but this video is about this camera, and I think it's the best camera for YouTube right now. So let's go ahead and switch to this right now. So we're back here and we're shooting on the M50 using the 15 to 45 millimeter kit lens. The next thing that's you're chomping at the bit, so you're hitting the backspace. Okay, he got me on that one. 720p for 120 frames a second. Oh my God, that's horrible. That's terrible. I mean, why isn't it not in 1080 or 4K? Or do you really need 120 frames a second? Is kind of my first question. A, if you need 120 frames a second and 1080 or better resolution, well, this isn't the right camera for you. You're probably a professional and you're not even looking at this camera. You're looking at one of the more higher end professional level cameras. B, if you think that you need 120 frames a second and full HD to go to the local Starbucks and have Shiloh, the non-binary barista, pull your cold brew nitro so you can catch that cascade in slow motion, you're just wrong. It'll work in 60 frames a second. You don't need 120 frames a second. You're, just like I said before, you've been watching the internets and all these reviews from people that are paid to do them to tell you that these other cameras with these better specs are going to beat this camera, and they're just not. They're just not going to beat it. So that kind of does it for the big things that everybody hates on this camera for. So how does this camera beat the competition? Hold on. How does this camera slaughter the competition? Because it does, in my opinion. It just slaughters it. Number one, I think for the image quality to the size, for what you get image quality wise, that size to image ratio, I'm gonna call it, it can't really be beat. This 15 to 45 millimeter kit lens that comes with the camera is pretty decent for vlogging. I mean, a lot of the other cameras in this price range, either you can't get a camera in this price range with a lens, or if it comes with a lens and it's a competitor to this, the lens isn't that good. Look at what you're getting right now. I'm filming this on the kit lens. It's not bad at all, is it? Granted, the kit lens is only a 3.5 aperture at its widest, which is where I'm at right now. Not gonna be a low light monster. This camera is not a low light monster. This camera is decent, and if you're creative with how you use it in low light and you look for light sources, like you should do anyways, try and be creative, you're gonna be fine in low light with this camera. Initially, I felt like, oh, I can't use this camera, it gets dark and I can't do anything. And then I started being a little bit more creative and realizing you can use this camera in low light if you're a little bit creative on the choices of your shots and how you do it. Probably the biggest thing about this camera where it slaughters everybody is ease of use. I mean, nobody even comes close at touching this camera when it comes to ease of use, especially if you're new to YouTube and you're just stepping up from your cell phone. This is going to be pretty easy to catch on to this camera. For some reason, I don't understand it. There's a lot of camera manufacturers that make really good cameras. There's so few that make that fully articulating screen, and even fewer that have a fully articulating screen that's touch enabled. And when I say touch enabled, I'm talking fully touch enabled. You can access every aspect of this camera from the screen while I'm sitting in front of it here. If I need to change anything on, I'm like, oh man, my ISO's too low, let me bump that up. Whoa, now it's so much brighter, or that's too much, let me bring it down a little bit. Okay, we're done. You can do everything while you're recording and in front of the camera. I can't tell you how easy that makes this camera to use and how nice it is that I can access everything from the front facing screen. That alone, is I'm not gonna lie, I've been tempted. That some of the hype, I watched the videos just like you've been doing, and I hear about how the Sony a6400 is so good. Everybody gets me excited about how it's the best camera ever invented. But then the screen isn't really touch enabled, it's just touch to focus only. And that may not seem like a big deal until you get used to using a camera like this. That alone, that feature alone has prevented me from getting another camera. Until somebody has a fully touch enabled screen comparable in price to this, with these features, I'm not switching. This camera's great. Another thing that makes this camera really, really useful is it has a built-in microphone input. A lot of cameras have microphone inputs nowadays, or the ability to add a microphone. This price range, not a lot. I know the new G7X3 just got announced a couple days ago, and everyone's excited it's gonna have a microphone input. The DJI, I was recorded the beginning of this video on my Osmo Pocket. You can adapt an external microphone to that with an adapter. The GoPro, you can put an adapter on that and adapt an external microphone to it as well. But those require an adapter, and then there's no way to attach the microphone to the camera. That's what I think is going to be the biggest problem with the G7X. It's not really that much smaller than the camera I'm using right now, but where are you going to put the microphone? By the time you add a cage or some sort of third-party company is going to come up with a way to attach a microphone to that new G7X, I guarantee you, and they're going to sell. They're going to sell like crazy. I don't know why. You just buy this camera, it's going to be cheaper than the G7X, and you can hook a microphone on it right away. By the time you add adapters and things like that, the smaller cameras get bigger. This doesn't require that. Another thing you hear is there's no good lenses available for that camera. Well, the 15 to 45 kit lens I'm using right now works pretty good. So if you want to spend a little bit more money, you can pick up this 11 to 22 millimeter lens that's native to this camera, and it's about 350 bucks on B&H right now. Really nice lens, and it gives you a little bit wider field of view. It helps with vlogging if you're walking around and you've got the camera at arm's length. I'll do some video of this here in a little bit. Also, you need a little faster lens that you can get some low light shooting. This tiny little 22 millimeter lens that fits on here, it's an f2. It's got a wide aperture and it works pretty decent in low light. I got 3 lenses for this camera that are native to it. A 15 to 45 kit lens, if I'm not mistaken, is about a 24 to 70. That's a pretty popular focal range for a zoom lens. My 11 to 22 here, which is like real close to a 16 to 35, which I think it's like 17 to 39. Pretty close to the most popular vlogging lenses. I've got my 22 millimeter right here that is equivalent to about a 35 millimeter prime lens and shoots in a 2.0 aperture. They also make a 32 millimeter 1.4 and it's equivalent to like a 50 millimeter. Isn't that funny? Let's say you have an SL2 or an 80D and you want to upgrade to this camera, something a little smaller, with the Digic 8 processor in it. You buy this guy, 43 bucks on Amazon. By Comlight, it is a EF to EFM adapter, and it'll fit any of your EF or EFS lenses that you currently own. Adapt right on here. I've had no issues with it at all. Use the Nifty 50 on this camera, which when you use this, it makes it like an 85 millimeter equivalent, 80-ish. Well, that's another lens. Well, let's say you want to spend a little bit more money. You spend like $150 and you get this thing right here. This is a speed booster. I'm not going to get in deep on how a speed booster works. It basically takes all the EF lenses that you have or buy, and it sort of fools the camera sensor into thinking that they're full frame lenses. It makes them act like a full frame lens on this. Autofocus, everything still works with this. Also using the speed booster, I kind of splurged and got myself the EF 16 to 35 f4. It's got the red ring, got the L. When you couple it with the speed booster, it's like a 16 to 35 approximately, maybe like a 17 to 36. It gives me that L glass, and I've used this for vlogging. It's just a little big. It makes the camera a little bit bigger and it's a little heavy to carry around, but the image quality is incredible with it. So yeah, so the point of everyone saying there's no lenses available for this, nah, not true. Don't listen to it. Every lens Canon makes is available to work on this camera for just $43. You can add an adapter. The biggest pro for this camera over all of its competition is the price. You can get this camera with its kit lens from B&H right now for $649. So the biggest competition for this camera, I think we'd all agree, is the Sony a6400. Currently at B&H for the Sony a6400 with the 16 to 50 kit lens, which is comparable to this lens, $998. So $650 or $1,000, let's just call it. All right, we'll round them both up to $650 or $1,000. So $350 more for the Sony a6400 equipped like this. And in my opinion, from what I've seen, their kit lens, I don't think is as good as this one, but it's comparable. So we'll just call that a $350 difference. What do you get for $350? Really nothing other than no crop in 4K, but if you're a beginner with YouTube, unless you've got a blazing fast computer and tons of memory cards and storage, you don't need 4K. You get 120 frames a second in 1080. Okay. Enjoy that with getting your coffee. I mean, what do you need to slow down so much? I've never said, man, I wish I had 120 frames a second. And even having it on here with a 720p, which it looks fine. I mean, it worked. By the time things get posted on YouTube with its compression, you don't even notice the difference. I think I've used it one time since I've had this camera. I just don't even think about using it. The 60 works fine for the little bit of slow motion you want to do. For that $350, you get 4K with no crop and 120 frames a second. If that's worth $350 to you, go ahead and get that camera. What you lose though is the fully articulating touchscreen. Yes, it has a flip-up screen. That works fine. Well, don't forget you got to factor in it's $350 more, plus you got to add the cost of that bracket to move your microphone off to the side so you can see your screen, right? Because you got to have that. Oh, and you're just getting started on YouTube, so you're looking for your first camera from your phone, so you need to buy a tripod. This is like kind of one of the least expensive popular tripods out there. For handheld, this is another $30, so you've got to buy that as well to make this camera. Oh, you're gonna get a microphone, right? I'm using the Rode Wireless Go. This is about $200 for this setup. It's nice because I can be further away from the camera and still get good audio, but you could go with a different microphone. Rode makes the Rode Video Micro, and that runs about $60, so you gotta add that on there. You probably want a bigger tripod too, like I've got it on now, that I can set the camera up on, maybe a monopod or a selfie stick type thing. You gotta be able to factor all that cost in. It starts adding up. I also mentioned before that I was gonna get some video with this 11 to 22, and I wanna talk about that right now. I'm gonna switch to this lens, and then I wanna talk about how I like this lens for vlogging. Let's go ahead and switch to this now. Whew. All right, we're back. And now we're on the 11 to 22 millimeter lens. This is an f4 lens. It goes for $349, $350 we'll call it, just to make it simple. You see how much wider the shot is. I haven't moved the camera and I haven't moved where I'm sitting. So you get a lot more. If you're gonna use this camera, and I'm gonna just get up and walk with it here for vlogging, you can walk around with it like this. I'm just holding it at the base here of the camera. If you use it like this for vlogging, it gives you a lot more of your background and everything. I think it's a little bit better than the kit lens. The kit lens is perfectly usable, but I think that you're gonna be happier with this lens for vlogging if you can afford it. You'll be fine with the kit lens to start with. It does the job like a pro, but I would say that this would be the first thing that I would get if you're using this for vlogging and you're out and about, moving around, running around. Let's say you're wavering, you wanna get the Sony a6400. Well, you're already $998, $1,000 for that camera with its kit lens. Well, let's say you wanna add an equivalent lens. Do they have one for the Sony a6400? Absolutely they do. Let me look it up here real quick. They have a 10 to 18 millimeter f4. That's basically equivalent to this 11 to 22 f4. This one's $349. The Sony one is $848. $850 to get this. That's a big investment. Or is it going to be that much better? I don't know what they put in there, if it's a lot better. This lens has image stabilization, so does the kit lens, so does the Sony kit lens, and so does that $1,000 Sony lens as well. I just don't know. That Sony, it's nice, it's a great camera, but man, that's a lot of money you're going to invest if you're just getting started. And you haven't even bought all of the other accessories that go with it. Kind of hard to beat this M50. Bottom line is, if you're new to YouTube and you want to get a camera to start with, this M50 it can't really be beat. If you're already on YouTube and you use your cell phone and you want to up your game to maybe get a little bit better image quality out of a different camera, this camera's a lot better. Matter of fact, let me show you what's capable of it. Let me put this lens on. Let's even see if it's worth it, this lens with the speed booster. Boom, we're back. And we are on the 16 to 35 f4. The interesting thing about this, and again, I said I wasn't going to get into the speed booster too much, I'm not, but with the speed booster, it becomes like a f2.8. And watch a video on speed boosters and how they work. They really, and it's pretty good. So is this a whole lot better than the 11 to 22 native lens? It's about the same focal distance. It's pretty close, pretty comparable, but you know, I've got a wider aperture, you know, an f2.8 versus a 4, and it's constant throughout the entire range, so I can zoom all the way in to here, and I'm going to keep that same aperture as where it's a little different on the other one. The aperture goes up and down if you don't, but that's a little bit close. So let's zoom all the way out here. So, and also I'll do a little vlogging here. We can walk around. So if you're someone who likes to walk with the camera and vlog with it, you hold it up like this, you still get plenty of the background there with you. As I'm walking around here, it reminds me, one of the things I haven't mentioned that this camera has is it sort of has its own little image stabilization. So it's like an electronic image stabilization. The lenses have image stabilization that's optical, but that's mostly for photography. I mean, it works a little bit for video, but the actual camera has a little bit of electronic image stabilization, and you can turn it on. It's like an enhanced or regular IS, or turn it off completely. It crops the image a little bit, but I found it's not bad. It actually helps a little. So, you know, it doesn't have that in-body image stabilization everybody wants, that everyone talks about, but you know, like the Sony a7 III has that, but that's a whole different league of camera there. You're talking thousands. You don't compare this to the EOS R, you don't compare this to the Sony a7 III. This is more like that a6400 I've been comparing it to. The Sony a6400, I know it seems like I'm a hater on that and bashing it. I think that's an excellent camera. I might even buy one at some point here and add to my camera collection, because I really respect that camera. It does a lot of great stuff. However, if I'm saying what's the better camera for someone to get for YouTube, especially when they're just starting out, this camera beats it all day long, no doubt about it. That's kind of what I wanted to say, that this camera, for the price, the entry-level price of $650 with a kit lens, you know, and the room to grow that you have with this camera, using the lenses like what I've got on it now and all the accessories you're gonna have to buy, I don't really think that there's a better camera for a YouTube vlogger that's out there right now. I just don't think there's anything better when it comes to ease of use, the features, the image quality, and the price, most importantly, because you've got to buy so much stuff when you start out. Do you have any experience with this M50 or other cameras in this price point? What's your opinion on everything I said today? Do you think that I'm absolutely wrong and I'm a complete idiot and this camera is not worth $650 with its kit lens? Why don't you leave me a comment down below and tell me how stupid I am for making this video and what I think, or let me know what you thought of the different lenses. So anyways, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, be sure to give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.